Like I said, I think you're low end for 43 defensive end. You're looking at 6'3", 260, and you can get upwards of say 6'6", 280. It's somewhere in that ballpark. The lighter guys you're probably going to put as a weak side defensive end. Then your heavier guys who are going to be more stout against the run, you might put strong side. So you could have like a 260-pound weak side defensive end, and then have like a 280-pound strong side defensive end, something like that.
Let me throw something out there. Mario Edwards Jr. as a strong side defensive end. What do you thought?
I thought about that. I've thought about that a lot, and I think I definitely think there is potential to do that. I think the problem the Raiders have is they could really use his quick first step inside.
He's just not been a good pass rusher, though. That's the problem with him.
Well, let's remember, he had 4.5 sacks through 8 weeks last year, and then kind of fell off when he got injuries kind of caught up to him.
Right.
So this isn't a guy who, he does produce as a pass rusher. He does produce. And again, we're talking about a mixed concept defense that none of us were too pleased at. I think with poor coaching. So
yeah.
That's part of it you have to take into consideration. But I think his biggest problem is he's a tweener. He's that. Realistic. He did a lot of 5 technique in college. He kind of translated for the Raiders to more of that strong side defensive end. But maybe you can move him inside. I don't know. He's an interesting one. It's going to be a tough call for them. But they need to put him in one spot and leave him there. It's the same thing with, and I know a lot of people aren't a big fan of his, but
Jihad Ward.
Jihad Ward, same thing. That's another guy. Could you put him as an oversized, strong side defensive end? The thing about him is he's got longer arms than Mario Edwards Jr. does, and he was a little bit taller. I do think he might be able to bend a little bit better than Mario Edwards Jr. Because the other thing about MEJ is he's very much upright.
Yeah.
He doesn't bend an edge. I think Ward might do that a little, but not much. So I think that would be the discussion. Do you want to move Mario Edwards Jr. inside and put Jihad Ward outside, which could make some sense.
Yeah, Jihad Ward would probably be a backup as well.
Sorry, JB. I just wanted to say, it's funny that you touched on people like Jihad Ward, Shalik Calhoun, and people like that, because that's what actually Gruden was speaking about recently, about the people that they've shown faith in drafting need to step up to the plate and actually be pivotal in what the Raiders are going to do in the new season. So it's interesting that you said about Shalik Calhoun, because he's one who really needs to step up. Jihad Ward, another one. There's quite a few guys that we've drafted and they've just not panned out in recent years.
Yeah, and part of that is the players, and part of that's the coaching. When I saw in his rookie year, all of a sudden Shalik Calhoun's being used as a 43 Sam, and he's used as a Leo, and they're having him cover tight ends. I'm thinking to myself, what the hell are you doing? You got a guy here who's a 4-year starter at defensive end. All he ever did was play 4-3 defensive end, and racked up something like, what do you do, 30-something sacks? I think he set the all-time record for sacks in the NCAA, or really close to it. That's what he did. That was his gig. And you're going to go and you're going to ask him to cover tight ends? What the hell are you doing? It didn't make any sense. Yeah, and then you're going to go take... And you're going to go take a guy like Jihad Ward, right, who I was never a huge fan of Jihad Ward. But let's say you're going to take a guy who's 6'5", 290 pounds, did one thing in college. They would line him up in maybe 1 or 2 spots and just tell them, just go forward. That's all he ever did, just go forward. And you're going to take that guy and now ask him to learn 10 different concepts along the defensive line to play 3 positions because Mario Edwards Jr. was hurt? Yeah, good luck with that.
Didn't we pass on a few people to take Jihad Ward, or was that someone else?
We passed on a few, but I think the guy everyone keeps coming back to was the one the Chiefs took. But they took him a couple picks before Jihad. But we took him midway through the second round, so it's not like or 11th pick in the second round or something. So of course we passed that.
It wasn't Derrick Henry, was it?
Yeah, it was Derrick Henry, but there's another guy who we passed on that everyone on Twitter is going crazy about, is the linebacker for the Falcons. What's his name? I forget his name.
Deion Jones,
yeah. But anyway, Hey, you said a defensive end. in free agency, but who's available that we can pay that can come in and start? I know Mayowa would be a nice backup, actually. But is there any starters out there, defensive end and free agency?
I don't. That's tough. I don't necessarily think that there's a guy out there where you say, you know what, I'm going to pay him good money and he's going to come right in and just dominate for me in this particular spot. I think defensive end in terms of free agency is pretty lackluster. I don't think it's a great group. I think it's going to mostly be guys who are relatively unproven that you're going to have to project a little bit and look at and think to yourself, okay, this is a guy who if I bring him in and I give him more opportunity that he's going to produce. I don't think that there's a lot of for sure's when it comes to this group.
Yeah.
But Parnell McPhee is a guy who would be interesting. We already mentioned Chris Smith. We mentioned Benson Mayowa. But when you start getting beyond that, it's really a poor group. I got to be honest, it's not a very good one. And 4-3 defensive end is tough because even in the draft, it's not a great group for 4-3 defensive ends. You got basically 3 of them. And then after that, it's either a bunch of tweeners who could go inside or it's a bunch of 3-4 outside linebacker types.
Well,
so
let's talk about them in the draft then. Who do we have? We have obviously Davenport who might fall, Chubb who might not fall. I like Hubbard. What are your thoughts on Hubbard? Have you watched some
Hubbard?
Film?
He's definitely going to track on the bigger side for a 43 defensive end. You're definitely talking about someone who's going to be more of that Danico Autry size. He's going to be 6'5", 280, basically. That's kind of the size you're looking at for him. I like Hubbard. I think he could be a solid round 2 pick. I think the problem you're going to have with Hubbard is I don't think he's going to be a great outside pass rusher in any way. Like, if he ever racked up 8 sacks in a year, I think that would be pretty good. But if I did want a guy to play strong side who I could also trust to shut down the run, I think Hubbard's a guy who's got potential to do that. Maybe a 6-sack guy. I think the advantage you get with a guy like Davenport is there's the upside to where in a year or two he could definitely do 10 or 12 sacks. Not 15 or 20, 10 or 12, right? Ziggy Ansah kind of numbers. Right. 10, 12 sacks, that group, right? He's tracking combine-wise very similar to Clowney, so he's in an interesting position. The other one I would look out for is Duke Ejiofor from Wake Forest.
Yep.
He's another guy who I think a lot of people are sleeping on, someone who I think is an absolute prototype for a 43 defensive end, someone I think you can definitely get in the second round who's going to have a lot of upside, and maybe right up there with a Marcus Davenport type. I think they're very similar. They're very similar type of players. I'm a big fan of his, so I could totally see, with the ability to go and grab that guy in round 2 as opposed to necessarily wasting using a round 1 pick on Davenport.
Yeah, sorry. What about Ogbonia Okoronkwo? So I'm quite a big fan of his, and he can actually play like linebacker and defensive end.
Yeah, well, he's going to be up there with like Nche Uso from USC. He's in that group where they're really not 43 defensive ends. You're probably either going to use them as a 34 outside linebacker and have to teach them how to play it, or you're going to use them as some sort of athletic space linebacker, and then in sub packages use them as a defensive end. So basically, Bruce Irvin is what you're talking about.
Yeah,
so you're kind of looking like a Bruce Irvin type. So, but another one of those would be like a Dorrance Armstrong Jr. from Kansas, and you could even get into having the same discussion with a Harold Landry, who could be something similar to that. Although I think Harold Landry, you're probably looking more as a 34 outside linebacker.
He's
very
just
specifically.
Yeah, they fall in the 250s weight range, which is a little light for the 43, right?
Yeah.
Hey, what about this? Raiders have some cap space issues if they don't release. Who do you expect to see, or probably see the Raiders letting go if they don't restructure their contracts?
Well, the moment they get an inside track on a corner, Sean Smith is gone.
Mm-hmm.
The moment that happens, he's out. And whoever they get at corner, they're going to build a contract that's going to fit Sean Smith's 2018 cap hit. So his cap hit's $8.5 million this year. It doesn't matter if it's Tremaine Johnson or whoever it is. They're going to build a contract and use a signing bonus to make sure that their 2018 cap hit is $8.5 million or less. Because that way, by dropping one and signing the other, they're still saving money. So whoever that is, but I think the difference with, say, Sean Smith and David Amerson, Sean Smith does not have any time period where, say, his contract is guaranteed, like David Amerson had. So they're in no rush to cut him. They have up till the first week of the year to cut him and take literally no dead cap. So they're just in no rush. There's no reason to do it at this moment. Obviously, the other ones that are a little bit smaller, I definitely think you're looking at Roberts getting cut. You could save about $2.4 million there. You're looking at Newhouse getting cut. There's $2.25 million there that you can save. And a couple other interesting transactions that could happen. I do think we're definitely going to be looking into seeing Jared Cook get replaced. I think John Gruden wants somebody who is a better blocker. I don't anticipate him having a tight end, especially starting tight end, that really has more than maybe 30, 35 receptions in a season. But I think a guy like Levine Tuolo from the Falcons, who signed a 3-year, $12 million deal and then got released 1 year into it, could be a great replacement, and you could really save maybe $3 or $4 million in your year one cap hit by cutting Cook and then signing Levine Tuolo.
Why not bring back Lee Smith?
Bring who?
Lee Smith.
Bring back Lee Smith? I think it's possible. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Right. My only thing is Levine Tuolo's younger. He's taller, and although he's not necessarily that much faster, because he's like 6'7", 6'8", he's a natural, significant threat up the seam. Just being huge. It's just the sheer fact he has that kind of size. And he's a long strider type. So, I have nothing against bringing back Lee Smith. My biggest problem with Lee Smith is he racked up a ton of penalties last year. I think he got very carried away sometimes and really put the Raiders in some bad spots. And I think it wouldn't surprise me if John Gruden and co. saw that on tape and just kind of went, yeah, I'll pass. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't surprise me. Could they bring him back? Sure. But I'm not necessarily sold that he's, their ideal guy to have in that spot.
All right. We got a couple of draft questions for you. Right before that, I want to throw out a weird scenario. Not a weird scenario, very unpopular. It's been struggling in my head. I got yelled at for it. But Feliciano is a free agent next year. Mm-hmm. Maybe, would it be too crazy if they traded Gabe Jackson away? Save some money, insane. Get a second-round pick maybe, and hope Feliciano takes that place, or just too crazy?
You're nuts.
Yeah.
So
all right.
You're nuts, and this is why. But I'll actually explain why. For one, first things first, we just saw the Raiders re-sign Jelly Ellis. Reggie McKenzie is going to put a big significance on retaining his own talent. He's not going to re-sign Gabe Jackson and then immediately trade him. That's first thing. Second thing, if you trade him, you're only saving $4.5 million this year, and you're eating $6 million. That's a problem. Okay. The other thing, and I think this should be noted, the Raiders have flexibility across their offensive line. Kelechi Osemele is built like a tackle, and he's playing left guard. They could, in theory, and I've talked about this a lot, take Osemele, bump him out for this year to right tackle, move Gabe Jackson from right guard to left guard, and put Feliciano at right guard. Feliciano also played right tackle in college a couple of times, so you could theoretically put it there. I mean, I really believe that the Raiders could do that move, put Kelechi Osemele out to right tackle this year, Jackson at left, Feliciano at right. And then this offseason, you re-sign Feliciano, and then you bump Kelechi Osemele out to left tackle, and now David Sharp comes in, and he becomes your right tackle.
I don't know.
To me, is the most sensible, little bit of moving around the pieces.
I don't know if KO wants to play tackle, though. I think he mentioned...
Ask him.
I think he'll play.
I'll ask him. I'll call him up. No, I read somewhere on Twitter that he doesn't want to play tackle, but I don't know who said it or if it was just bullshitting.
I don't know. All I know is that dude is one mean dude, and the other thing, like I said, you could always try to see if Feliciano can make a decent right tackle for you. He's going to be oversized. I don't think